Hello everybody, and welcome to a Q&A video. This was a celebration video that I initially thought up for my 1,000 subscriber celebration, but I guess it's now an 1,100 subscriber celebration because we have grown so quickly. I really do appreciate all of the support from all of you. You asked some great questions, so thanks for those, and let's dive right in. Question number 1 comes from Unai Ade, and it is, what is your favorite Modern deck? My favorite Modern deck that I play is Mono Blue Tron. That's the deck that initially my brother got it for me as a birthday present. It was a budget version, and I was really happy to have it because I'd never gotten to play Modern before. And after that, I slowly upgraded over time, so it's a pretty fully built version at this point. But I just really enjoy playing it. It's like a control deck, but then you do some really broken things sometimes, and then there's occasionally times where you just go turn 3 Tron and really get the opponent, and it's just really a ton of fun. Sometimes you can play like fun one-ofs in the deck, like you can play Solemn Simulacrum, and whenever you play that in Modern, your opponent just looks at you like, this isn't a game of Commander. And then the win condition of Mindslaver locking the opponent, where you just take all of the turns, is really hilarious. Especially when your opponent's like, but how are you going to win? I'm like, I'm going to deck you because I'm just drawing Mindslaver every turn. And they're like, but I have more cards in deck than you. And you're just like, I'm drawing Mindslaver every turn. For people who don't know how that Mindslaver lock works, that doesn't really make sense, but it's a pretty fun deck, and I really do enjoy it. Other Modern decks that I do like, Infect kind of has a soft spot in my heart, because when I was first looking for Modern decks to get, Infect was one of those lists that I checked out. I was like, ooh, Mono Green Infect, it would be a cool budget list. But it's definitely a deck that I kind of think is kind of cool. You just kind of, it's the decks that I think are cool are very different from the decks that I like playing. But I think Infect's kind of cool. I think Boggles is kind of cool. I just think it's like Slippery Boggles is a hilarious card. Like the art's hilarious, the flavor text hilarious, and then you just put a bunch of shit on it, and it's great. Sorry for swearing for all of the younger audiences, but I think that it's just really fun and like hilarious that it exists in Modern. But some decks that I like to play, I like playing like decks that have a lot of instance and interaction. I think that's the most fun part. So I do kind of like Abzan style decks, things like that. But Mono Blue Tron is my favorite Modern deck. Question number 2 comes from Fernando Calero, but there was a bunch of people that asked us, what's your favorite color combination? I think that blue-red is probably my favorite color combination. It's just, I like the fact that it can do some fast things, but it also has some more controlling elements a lot of the time. One of the decks that I played in Standard was Blue-Red Prowess, and that deck really kind of got me to enjoy Blue-Red. I also kind of think it's not a color combination per se, but monocolor decks are kind of cool. I just kind of think that it's neat when you just fully embrace what the color has to offer. And then if I'm thinking about like 3 color combinations, I like Jeskai a lot, and I kind of, just because I really like the idea that you can play like instant speed and do a lot of controlling things. And then I like Jund because I just love pure value. Like when a card is just a built-in 2-for-1, or it's like produces a token every turn, I'm just like, oh, this is so good. I love cards like that. Question number 3 comes from CY Bates. When you first started, did you imagine eventually getting to 1,000 subscribers? That is a great question. When I first started my YouTube channel, it was because I was streaming on Twitch. It was just, I liked playing Magic, so I wanted to share that with the community. So I would be streaming on Twitch, and I realized that the OBS has a button for recording right next to the button for streaming. So I was like, you know, I might as well record these and post these on YouTube. And so I started posting things on YouTube. Back in Ixalan Draft was when I first started recording things for YouTube. And I streamed all during almost all of Hour of Devastation. And it was just really a great experience, because I would post these things on YouTube and it would get like more views than I would get during my stream, because my stream was not big. It was like 100 followers or something like that at the time. I had just been made an affiliate with Twitch, so it was probably around 100 followers, and so I would have like 2 or 3 viewers. I have had some long time viewers that have been with me since the beginning, which is really crazy to think about. But I didn't actually have a big like presence on Twitch, and so I just started posting these things on YouTube, and then at a certain point I realized that my YouTube was going to pass my Twitch stream, and that was just kind of an interesting thought, because I was like, wow, I'm more of a YouTuber than a Twitch streamer, which it's funny because at this point my YouTube is far bigger. It's like something like 1,100 and something to 400 in terms of like subscribers on YouTube to followers on Twitch, but like it's still crazy. And like I don't stream on Twitch as much because school is super busy, but it's just really interesting to think about that I really only started posting on YouTube because my Twitch, I was streaming on Twitch, and I just figured I might as well post it, and it worked out, and I'm really glad that I did. So thanks for the question. The next question comes from Magnesium. It's, do you play EDH? And if so, what is your favorite deck / legendary? I do play EDH. I love the format. I think it's really cool because there's all levels. I think I'm not a huge fan of the most competitive EDH, but that's probably just because I don't have super competitively built decks. Most of my decks are more like for a fun like couple hours playing with friends. and that's one of the beauties of EDH is you can play super competitive, you can play super casual, and they're both really fun. The 2 decks that I have are Prosh, Skyraider of Care. It would be really embarrassing if I got his name wrong. But it's basically a Jund value deck. I don't actually have infinite combos in there because my playgroup doesn't really play with infinite combos. But I think that Prosh is just a really fun commander. You can sometimes get your opponent with like giving him haste and stuff. And overall, there's just a ton of value to be had in the Jund color combination. The other deck that I have is Zedruu the Great-Hearted. Zedruu is a really funny commander because you can play just a bunch of really wacky cards that nobody else ever plays, and your win conditions are sometimes really dumb, like Approach of the Second Sun is how I win games of Commander sometimes. But Zedruu is just like a funny, like, you give your opponent cards, and a lot of the time I'll be giving them like an Oblivion Ring, but sometimes I'll give them a card like that makes them discard their hand at every end step, and it's just like really funny because Zedruu is just like a kind of like harmless goat commander. But then she just does really brutal things, and your opponent's like, wait, what did you just do to me? But yeah, if you were paying attention earlier, my favorite color combinations I was saying was like Jund and Jeskai, and Prosh is Jund and Zedruu is Jeskai, so I guess it kind of fits. I didn't like plan that out. I think there's so many cool commanders. Like, I really like Commander. If I had like infinite funds, I would have like thousands, like not thousands. I would have tons of Commander decks, but like there's not a ton of people that play like nearby, so I don't play it that as much as I would like. But it's just a really fun format. I really enjoy it every time I play it, and it's always a fun time. There's always just some really funny moments. Like I have a Mind Dilation in my Zedruu deck, and your opponent will cast a big spell, and then you'll flip the spell off their deck, and it'll be a counter spell, and it's just the funniest thing ever. But if you don't understand fully what those things were, those were just specific cards. So, yeah. Next question comes from Water Polo Quaker. What are you studying in college? For those who do not know, I am a college student, and I am studying economics. But I'm doing a lot of math and science classes to potentially do some engineering stuff as well. So thanks for the question, Water Polo Quaker. I really just do like economics. It's just kind of fun. Lots of math stuff that's just kind of applied math, which I really do enjoy. Next question comes from Peter Klein. He had multiple questions, and they were all pretty good, so I figured I'd feature all of them. What is your goal with YouTube? I mean, I don't really have any major goals with YouTube. I just view it as a just kind of a fun thing to do, and I think that's one of the big things when you are starting a YouTube channel is you don't really view it as like, oh, I'm going to start a career as a YouTuber. You just kind of do what you enjoy doing, and it kind of falls into place. Your YouTube will grow if you have something relevant to say a lot of the time, or if you are like if you can contribute to people's lives and help them improve at something or be entertaining. Your YouTube will grow. But you don't just start out saying, if I do this, this, and this, my YouTube will grow, and I'll eventually be able to do not that it's a career for me or anything. Like, that's not like a goal for me. It's just I'd like having a voice on the internet. I like being able to share my ideas, and I like being able to help people. And YouTube is just a perfect place for that. How long have I been playing? I first played. So my first experience with Magic the Gathering, this is a fun story, was at my friend Eduardo's house. And I remember this because this was back, he had cards from Kamigawa. And if you don't know how the cards from Kamigawa worked, there were some cards that you could play face up, and then if a certain condition was met, you would flip them upside down. So I remember like I was playing this game, and I was just wildly confused as to what was going on. Because he had these cards, and I had to like turn my head like all the way like that to read his cards, and so I was like very confused. But then like I think like a couple months later, me and my little brother were in Target, and we saw like 2 starter decks, and this was in Dark Ascension. And the 2 starter decks, mine was called Grave Power, and it featured a lot of cards that had to do with the graveyard. So there was a card called Armored Scab, which was a 1/4 for 3 mana that milled you 4 cards or something like that. And I think definitely the foil rare was Ghoul Tree, and my little brother got a card with it was like an Undying deck, so it had like Young Wolf, and I think there was some Devil that had Undying that did a bunch of damage. It's played in Manaless Dredge, like Flayer of the Hayebounds. That's the name of the card. So we were playing these decks against each other, and it was really funny because you just remember these like lessons that you learned along the way. We hated self-mill cards, and this was a graveyard deck that I had. My first deck was a graveyard deck, but a lot of the cards milled yourself. So I would play an Armored Scab, and it would mill me for 4, and I remember just being like, oh, please don't mill my best card, please don't mill my good cards. And it was just like this thing where at a certain point in my graveyard deck, I literally cut Armored Scab because the like things came with like 2 booster packs, so I was just cutting it for like random jank, and in my graveyard deck where it's like a great card, and it's just like such a funny memory because like I remember just hating that effect. And it's so many new players can relate to that, I feel, because that's just like one of the things you're like, oh no, not my best card, not my best card. And there was many times like that. And I played with my little brother. We had fun with it. But that's just one of my memories. That was like the first time I played Dark Ascension was like, and then we didn't really play very often. We played like Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon, like not really Pokemon, but we just had cards from like various things. And then we would play. My first time drafting was actually in Dragons of Tarkir, and it was like one of my best days ever. I know this is a bit of a long-winded story, but this was just a really great day for me. My friend had like rigged up a like push cart, like one of those little dollies. He like constructed this wooden beam, and I remember because he tied his bike, the bike was attached to this wooden dolly, and we called it a chariot, and I like rode on this like dolly that was basically like falling apart in my hands, to his house, which was like half a mile from the school, and we like crossed a busy street and stuff, and he was just riding his bike, pulling me behind while I held on to a piece of twine, essentially, and it was just like a great like just kind of a crazy thing that happened. And we rode to and back from his house, and it was like, what the heck is happening? This is great. And then afterwards, my brother was picking me up, and he was like, he was going to play Friday Night Magic, because that was kind of his thing. He played Magic, he played Commander with his friends, and I was like, I remembered I loved strategy games as a kid, and I decided to go to this draft, and the local game shop was wonderful. It was really cool. My local game shop in my hometown used to be really awesome. Unfortunately, it went out of business, which was really sad. That's why you need to support your local game shop when you can. And it was really sudden too. It like just one day it just wasn't open anymore, and like I would just see my friends, like we were all like would walk there, and it was just closed, and it was like, oh my gosh, what happened? But yeah, my first draft, I remember my first card that I took was Assault Formation, and then I remember I think the second card I took was like a foil segmented Crotic, which if you played Dragons of Tarkir, I'm not sure if I got the card name right, but it was like a 6-mana 6/5, and I was just like, oh, this is so powerful. Oh man, but good times. And then I remember in that draft, the first person I got paired against was my big brother. And I remember I had the combo of like Assault Formation and Ukad Cobra, which was like a 2/5 Death Toucher. So I was just playing Assault Formation in my just normal deck, essentially. But it was just a fun time. And then I think I lost to him. And then the second round, I got to experience Control for the first time, where this guy just completely killed like every creature I played, and was just laughing hysterically about it. Yeah, that was definitely a funny moment. And then I actually beat someone. It was like 4 rounds or something, because this was like a store where you would just play cross pod or whatever. It was just kind of casual like that. But I remember my final round I beat someone, and he had this is how I would think he had an Impact Tremors in his deck, and I beat him. And after the game, I was like looking through his cards, and he was like, do you want to keep this Impact Tremors? And Impact Tremors is just a completely worthless card. And I was like all nervous. I didn't want to like take his card, because I felt guilty for like taking a card that was like valuable to him. And yeah, that was like my first experience with playing those, and then playing draft. And then I got kind of into it. My friend was actually really good, and he was actually my friend Tom was like really good at draft, or he probably still is. Really, he still is good at draft, but he just doesn't play as much anymore. But he really taught me a lot of the lessons, like why self-mill isn't bad and stuff like that. Okie doke. And then the final question, do you plan to play in GPs or other major events? The question was kind of like, do you see yourself going in a more competitive direction playing Magic? And not really. The thing is it's really a large time commitment, and like qualifying for the Pro Tour is really difficult, and just takes a lot of time. So that's not really something that I see myself doing. I do play in GPs when they're nearby, and hopefully I can see some of you folks at a GP if I go to one and you see me around. Just come say hello. The last GP I went to, I wasn't quite big enough of a YouTuber to have anyone walk up to me and say, hey, NicolaiBolas, this is crazy, sign my playmat. That didn't happen, but it will happen one day, and it'll be sick. Okay, next question. Thanks for the good questions, Peter Klein. Next question comes from Nathan Ehrenberger. What are your favorite guilds from a limited play perspective and from a flavor perspective? This is actually a really nice distinction to make, because there are some guilds that I really enjoy playing that I really don't like the flavor of, and vice versa. I actually like playing a lot of the guilds. Some of the guilds that were less of my favorite. From Guilds of Ravnica, I wasn't a huge fan of Dimir after a certain point. It just kind of felt like you were playing the same deck a lot of the time. You would just kill their stuff and then play like a Watcher in the Mist. Same with Boros. You really had to curve out. Selesnya got a little bit dry. Actually, you know, they were all fine, but like they weren't my favorite. I really liked Izzet in that set, but Izzet, especially like the Izzet aggro decks, because those were just kind of a cool experience. Same with Selesnya, not Selesnya, with Golgari, because nobody really played Golgari, so I always would kind of have these Golgari cards, and people were like, "Big, why are you playing this garbage?" And I would just kind of crush people with it sometimes, and it would be really fun. So I think those were my favorite from that set from a play perspective. And then in the current set, in Ravnica Allegiance, I like Simic a lot. I like playing Orzhov a lot. Those decks, like, Simic is cool because you're just doing a bunch of adapt shenanigans, and Orzhov is cool because you have like a bunch of value plays. I like Azorius too, just because I like the Skies type of decks, sometimes tempo oriented. Gruul is just a bunch of big creatures, and I don't really like playing Rakdos in this set, but. And then from a flavor perspective, I think my favorite guild is the Izzet, because I just think it's kind of awesome that they just have a bunch of inventions that they don't really know what's going on, and they're just like, well, let's try it. I just really love that perspective. Flavor perspective, I think Selesnya is really cool. Like we're all in a conclave. Peace. Wasabi. I know that was a joke. But I think that's cool. I'm not a fan of Dimir. I think Dimir is like, I don't like bad guys. I just think, oh, they're sneaky. I don't really like them. Golgari, I'm like, yeah, not really into the whole zombie thing. And then I really think Boros is cool. Like, I love that whole, like, we are the Legion. And I just really think that's a cool dynamic. I think that's awesome. I like Boros a lot. I'm just going to go through all of the guilds, I guess, at this point. Simic, I don't really like. I think it's kind of creepy when you turn in elf into like a crab mutant. That's just kind of not really my jam, but I do like playing as Simic, just not really their flavor. Though some of their stuff is kind of cool, like when they're making, like, I don't know, it just, experimentation like that is kind of, it gets me sometimes. Some of the like stuff they do is just kind of bad. But and then, wow, this is like a can you remember every guild challenge, which would be really shameful if I forgot a guild. Rakdos I think is kind of funny. Like I think that I don't really like I think they're kind of funny, but I'm not like a huge fan overall. Just the whole we are pain inflictors is just not really my vibe. Dang, there's Orzhov, not really a huge fan. Like I don't really like that they kind of take advantage of people. And then I think Gruul is kind of cool. Like they come from outside of the city and they just kind of bring chaos with them. I think I kind of like that vibe. And they're just like a bunch of big creatures, and they just kind of go do what they want. So I like Gruul and Azorius. I really think Azorius is kind of neat, but I don't really like how like uptight they are sometimes. I kind of like it. I like them, but I think they're a bit too uptight sometimes. Okay, good questions, Nathan. Next question comes from Schmeralize. His question was, how are you such a good sport? And it was specifically regarding when you get unlucky or when your opponent gets super lucky. And basically my mentality on it was I'm very lucky overall. Like, first of all, Magic's a game, and one of the things I like to think is if I won every single game, it wouldn't be fun. Because part of the fun of playing a game is that there's a challenge. You could potentially lose, you could potentially win, and there's no guarantee that you're going to win any given match. And that's definitely part of the fun. If I was guaranteed to win, it wouldn't be fun. No game would be fun if you're guaranteed to win. It's like part of the reason when I play a video game, I really like playing against other people, or I like playing on a difficulty that's like difficult for me, like actually hard to win, because like whenever I see people play a video game and it's like on the easy setting and they're just completely smashing the bots, that's not really a fun experience for me. I like playing on hard settings and having a real challenge. So first, like, one thing is just having the right perspective. If you win every game, it's not fun. So I'll be willing to take the beats when they come. Another thing is, I've had a lot of good luck in my life. So in Magic specifically, in games, like I have a bunch of like videos where I'll have like an epic top deck, and it'll just be that greatest moment ever. Like I had one video where I was like, if I draw Tetsamok, I just win. And then I drew a Tetsamok, and I was like, Tetsamok, I am basically God. That was like my Twitch clip. So it was just really there's a lot of really hype moments that you get from the top decks, and the highs are much lower than the lows. Because when your opponent top decks, you can be like, wow, I can't believe that just happened. I did not see that coming. One of the things I've gotten better at is playing around like multiple card combinations, because I used to get like really mad when there was a game that I couldn't possibly lose, and I wouldn't play around like my opponent having bounce spell plus pump spell, and then they'd have bounce spell plus pump spell, and I'd lose, and I'd be like, wow, I can't believe I lost that game. But I've gotten better at it over time. And also, once you've lost enough, you just eventually get into the like state of mind where you just like shrug it off. And finally, one thing I like to do is like think about the people that get unlucky in much bigger stages, like LSV mulling to 4 or whatever in like the finals of a pro tour. And I'm just like, well, if nothing even comes close to that, this is just a casual game I'm playing. So that's what I tend to do. And also just like having a positive outlook on life in general helps. And then the final question comes from Griffin Minor, and it is, what is your personal favorite card art in Standard? And this one was really tricky. This was a good question, Griffith, because I do love card art. I think there's a ton of card art, and I think my favorite card art, what I learned as I was scrolling through, was I like the card arts that tell a story. Like, you can kind of see like a flash frame in like a larger story. Like the ones that are just still photos are like still arts are kind of cool, but like I really like the ones that like you can get into the character's head. And I settled on a card art, and I like was scrolling through all the card arts of all of Standard. So there was a lot of card arts, and there's a lot of really cool card arts. But I think my personal favorite card art has to be Star of Extinction. I really vibe. I know I use the word vibe a little bit too much, maybe. Sorry. But this one, like, Brontosaurus that's like looking over at this comet that's about to like ruin his world, and this like pterodactyl that's flying away. There's just so much detail in this drawing, and it brings me back to my childhood, to The Land Before Time, which was like my favorite show. I like have all of the songs from that thing memorized randomly. Not randomly, it's because I watched it so many times. I just love The Land Before Time, and this just really brought me to like the whole dinosaur thing, like, oh, the Land Before, because there was like an episode in Land Before Time where there was a comet, and but this is just, I vibe with dinosaurs, and this dinosaur, like, there's a dinosaur here, and it's just like you see him and he's just looking over, he's got a mouthful of grass, and then all of a sudden he's just like, it's just so sad, he's about to like be wiped out. And Star of Extinction just has like such a good like flavor and effect, and I just really like Star of Extinction. Like, Arclight Phoenix was high up there. There's a bunch of green cards that are up there. Rekindling Phoenix has great art. Jace Cunning Castaway has kind of cool art. I mean, there's a bunch of cool arts. Kapala, Warden of Waves, has great art. There's a ton of great artworks in Standard. But I ended up going with this one. And, yeah. Anyway, that is going to do it for the question and answer. I know it was a long one. I know I went off track sometimes, but that is part of the fun of doing question and answer things. And I really do hope all of you enjoyed it. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great day. Thanks for all of the support. Dang, that feels like a bad ending. Thank you so much for all of the support. I really appreciate it all. There we go. Thanks. I'll see you later.